from San Francisco. It's been an incredible past few days of catching up on innovation hubs, accelerators, co-working spaces. You're going to catch up on what's just happened before I fly out. Here we go. One of the first places we went to was a place called Runway. 30,000 square feet of co-working space, modular, you can move things around, create little nooks and corners. They even had a dome made out of magnetic blocks that you can put together or take down. Emphasis on a bit of a later stage. I was talking to a friend of mine, Chris Rathke, and he was saying that that's what he appreciated about working out of there, was that people could, you know, when you looked across the room, you kind of knew what you were getting. There were people all thinking the same thing, all along the same lines. And that's what we saw a lot over here, is accelerators, co-working spaces, hubs, focused on either the stage of development, the industry sector, the technology stack. So really allowing for that specialization to focus on the startup success, and so that investors and corporate partners knew what they were getting. We then went to a place called The Vault and had a conversation with Angel Labs. Angel Labs is an investor accelerator for high net worth individuals, where they go around and educate people on what they refer to as the new asset class. Interesting to hear the term. Asset typically refers to, say, a building or a company that you might invest in. The new asset class of the startups, high risk but potentially high return, but investors need to be educated, and that's what Angel Labs does. Setting up the groups and creating a bit of a global consortium, as it were, for investors to connect and be educated on what it means to invest in startups. Streets of San Francisco, heading off to Aussie Drinks tonight. One of the meetings that we had today was at a company called ReadWrite, who's doing a lot within the IoT space. And I'm sitting here with Mike, or walking here with Mike, and who's got some pretty strong thoughts on IoT hardware, having set up a bit of a makerspace himself, and what that means for the Australian scene, and potentially how we can take advantage of it, and maybe even enter some of the US market. Mike?
Yeah, so look, there's a very real opportunity here to build sort of a pre-accelerator program around taking makers that have great ideas. Like, the makers come up with incredible inventions to solve very real local problems that are very highly scalable sometimes. Sometimes they're not. And it's part of that process is to be able to take people from where they feel like they've got a great idea take them through some kind of process, and get them ready to actually land here in San Francisco at a place like ReadWrite Labs, which is an accelerator. We might have to stop for that car. It's an accelerator that allows for, once you've got your MVP, how do you get to market? Like, how do you get an exit from that MVP? And they've got connections with like Chinese government, they've got connections with Indiegogo to help with fundraising and marketing and things like that. Like, once you can get to that stage, it's fantastic. You can go really, really quickly.
There was actually an Aussie founder in there, one of the success stories from ReadWrite, who came in and shared some of what he got from it, talking about potentially keeping our engine in Australia, but being able to then use the US market for sales, distribution, and really accessing the larger market, using the Australia to validate.
Well, absolutely. Like, one of the things he mentioned, which is spot on the money, is that it costs 4 times the amount to get that same engineer here than it does in Australia. So you're better off going through your MVP stage, like getting your prototype done, designing your model, and doing all that in Australia where it's cheaper to do so. And then when you're ready to scale, and scale fast and big, then come to San Francisco. Everyone across it?
Yeah. Excuse me. So if you could say one thing to an Australian IoT startup who's working in that space, to talk about some of your takeaways today, what would it be?
We're going to find a way. We're going to find a way to give you the resources that you need so that you're ready to scale, to take that brilliant idea that you have right now and turn it into something that is a world-scaled product.
Excellent. Let's do it. Thanks, Mike. One of the last places we went was a place called Startup House, with co-working space on the bottom floor, accommodation on the second floor. Designed to help people when they first enter into the San Francisco market to be able to stay someplace at a lower cost. One of the things that really impacted me and a few people on this trip has been just the gap between what we see in some of the buildings and just walking around and the homeless that are here. When we were at Startup House, Elias, who was sharing a little bit about the space, said to one direction you can get a place for $400 a month for rent, and just a few blocks down it's around $500 a night. So the Startup House is really trying to address that aspect of low cost accommodation just to help people get started.